Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 17 to 20. Lesson from Quranul Hakim by the thinker of the Quran, Allama Ghulam Ahmad Parwez. Dear brothers, today is the 28th of July 1968. We are continuing our new series of lessons on the Quran, and we are still in the opening verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. Today's lesson begins from verse 17. According to values, the Quran divides humanity into two groups. Since the beginning of this surah, the Quran has mentioned three groups of people. The first group, those who with complete sincerity of heart believe in the truth of God's laws and shape their lives accordingly. This is the group of the muttaqeen, the righteous. The second group, those who either do not truly believe in their truth and for reasons of self-interest or expediency only profess belief verbally, or those who may believe in their truth but do not act according to them, thereby practically denying them. The third group, those who openly reject and deny them, and when they deny, then naturally the question of acting upon them does not arise. Although three groups are mentioned, if we reflect carefully, in reality they reduce to only two. One group is that which lives according to God's laws, the other group is that which lives against them. That is why the Quran in other places also divides humanity into two groups. It says, فَمِنْكُمْ كَافِرٌ وَمِنْكُمْ مُؤْمِنٌ 64:2, meaning, among you are disbelievers and among you are believers, meaning, one group lives according to God's laws and the other lives in opposition to them. The functioning of natural laws. Now it must be understood what it means to live according to these values and what it means to go against them, because the entire teaching of the Quran proceeds on this basis. There will be only two groups, and we must first keep these two groups in view to understand the matter. In this universe, God's natural laws are at work, and according to them, the entire system of the cosmos operates. Fire gives heat. Water quenches thirst. Obedience to these laws is absolutely necessary, but their obedience or violation relates only to man's physical life. When thirsty, one must drink water. Whoever drinks water, his thirst is quenched, and he lives. Whoever does not drink water and instead drinks acid is destroyed. Thus, obedience to these laws works in this way, and their results appear naturally. In these laws, there is no difference between believer and disbeliever. Fire heats Abdullah's water just as it heats Ram Das's water. Fire never distinguishes who placed the pot upon it. Poison kills God's most favored servants just as it kills, according to people's claim, his worst creatures, the sinners and the wicked. It makes no distinction. Even the prophets themselves, as the Quran explicitly states, died natural deaths just like other human beings. They too became ill. They too recovered. They ate and drank, and they too lived subject to natural laws. So far as obedience to natural laws is concerned, there is no difference between believer and disbeliever. This is a world of effort and action. Whoever strives and works according to natural laws will reap their results. He will receive the fruit of his labor. Whoever tills the soil according to these principles, prepares it, adds fertilizer, plants good seed, irrigates it, and protects it, his crop will ripen. Whoever violates these principles, his efforts will fail. Whether Muslim or non-Muslim, sinner or pious, these laws make no distinction. Up to this point, the matter is completely equal. Identifying the fundamental difference between natural laws of life and human values. Now the real matter begins, where human life as humanity starts. What we discussed earlier was physical life, and for explanation, it must be separated. Because the life that begins now is the life of man's humanity. Here a great difference arises. Here it is not natural laws, but other laws, according to which this life proceeds. For example, ghee gives strength and energy to a person,
Whether you buy it from the market or steal it, its effect upon physical life will be the same. But upon human life, its effect will be different. Lawful, halal sustenance will have one effect upon human life, while unlawful, haram sustenance will have another. It is true that today such things cannot easily be explained, nor can they be easily understood, because this difference is not visible or tangible. In fact, those who consume unlawful sustenance often appear to flourish, while those who live upon lawful sustenance may spend their lives in hardship. This is true. The matter of how the difference eventually becomes manifest will be discussed later. The beautiful structure of humanity is built upon the law of recompense given by revelation. At this point I am only saying, as far as physical life is concerned, there is no difference, but the difference arises in human life. And this is the point where religion, revelation, permanent values, faith and God's law of recompense, mukafat-e-amal, begin. Its necessity arises here, not before. What effect lawful and unlawful sustenance has upon an individual's life, this will appear later before us. As far as social systems are concerned, the Quran explains, nations that harness the forces of nature according to physical life will see results before them. They will gain success, they will progress. Nations that fail to do so will not achieve these things. But then comes the third group, those who harness the forces of nature, who gain all the means by which the world advances, and at the same time they spend the fruits of these forces according to the permanent values given by God.
The fruits of Quranic values are everlasting and abundant. The Quran says, here the difference will appear. Between these two nations, these two groups, there will be a distinguishing line, and that is, the nation which gains worldly benefits and spends them according to its own desires. From this arises corruption in the system of human civilization. Their progress, their grandeur and wealth are temporary, like a sudden flame that quickly flares up and then dies out. But if these gains are spent according to the permanent values of God, then they become enduring and radiant. As they advance, their light grows brighter, their foundations grow stronger. The Quran says, كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ, like a good tree whose roots are firm and whose branches reach the sky. أُكُلُهَا دَائِمٌ, its fruit is everlasting. Whether spring or autumn, la ilaha illallah, this way of life bears fruit in every season. The Quran explains that within this lies the secret of the rise and fall, the life and death of nations. Living according to these values, harnessing the forces of nature and spending them rightly, produces this enduring condition. The stability of human life depends on harnessing nature according to Quranic values. Let me repeat, the nation that does not harness the forces of nature, for it the question does not even arise whether it spends them according to values or not. The question of living a life of faith or disbelief does not arise. Just as if a man lives alone in a cave in the jungle, the question of being religious or sinful does not arise. The matter of sin and virtue arises only when man's dealings are with other human beings. Similarly, the nation that does not harness the forces of nature, for it the question does not arise whether its life is according to religion or against it. Listen again. Living according to religion means to harness the forces of nature and spend their fruits according to God's values. The one who does not harness them has no fruits to spend, so the question of spending them according to values does not arise. As the proverb says, what will the bald one wash and what will she wring out? The question arises only for those who harness these forces and then must decide how to use them. The fundamental difference between disbelief and faith depends on how the fruits of cosmic forces are spent. Remember, the question of a life of disbelief, kufr, or faith, iman, arises from the way the forces of nature are used. This is a very fundamental principle of the Quran. The issue arises here. After harnessing the forces of nature, one nation spends them for its own selfish interests. The Quran says, fine, their system will also yield fruit for them, because naturally they have harnessed these forces and are using them. But this will be like a sudden flame. It will flare up quickly, but it will not last. It will have no permanence or stability. The other nation harnesses these forces and spends their fruits according to God's permanent values for the welfare of humanity. The first nation spends for itself, its group, its party, its nation. The second spends for the welfare of all humankind.
This is the difference, spending according to God's values versus spending against them. The system that spends in line with divine values is the system that replaces corruption with reform, that has the welfare of all humanity in view. Life standard rises, human dignity increases, and thus the caravan of humanity as a whole advances and ascends. This is the fundamental difference between disbelief and faith, between the life of the believer and the disbeliever.
Two groups in simple terms. Although three groups are mentioned, when reduced they become two. One group spends the fruits of nature according to God's values, the other spends against them. In simple language, these are the two groups before us. The Quran explains, one group's progress will appear dazzling, catching the eye, but it will be like false jewels, mere decoration. The other group may, in the beginning, have to struggle more, and its progress may seem slower, but stability, permanence, and endurance will belong to them. Another difference. In the first case, one group or one nation may flourish. In the second, humanity itself rises higher and higher. The Quran's use of examples. The Quran style is that when abstract truths appear, simple realities not visible to the senses, it explains them through vivid examples. These examples, like the rest of its speech, are striking and make the matter clear in a tangible way. One group is described as Ulaika ladhina ishtarou dalalata bilhuda. They are those who purchased error in exchange for guidance. That is the literal translation. They sold the right path and bought the wrong one. The Quran continues, Fama rabihat tijaratuhum. Their trade did not profit. At first, their business seemed very profitable, but in the long run it became clear that this bargain brought them great loss. One who walks upon the wrong path can never reach the true destination. The Machiavellian concept of life in politics. Incidentally, let me point out, this Machiavellian maxim that means are justified by the ends achieved, that whatever method you adopt, if your goal is achieved, then the method is considered legitimate. According to the Quran, this is fundamentally wrong. Wrong is wrong. Think of it this way. How obviously false this is. A wrong path can never lead to the right destination. Therefore, not only must the goal be right, but the means of achieving it must also be right. If you use wrong means, you can never reach a true goal. That is why the Quran says, فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَاتُهُمْ. In the end, their trade did not profit them. Ultimately, they realized that their destination was wrong, and the paths leading to it were also wrong. Therefore, in the end, their trade brought them no benefit. At first, it seemed dazzling, but eventually that brilliance faded away. The condition of a life built only on human intellect. The Quran then explains this abstract truth with a vivid example. مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون. Their example is like that of one who kindled a fire, and when it illuminated what was around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness, unable to see. Imagine the solitude of a forest, a pitch-dark night, no sign of light anywhere, a lone traveler with no knowledge of the right path. He gathers some twigs and brushwood, lights a fire. For a few steps, the path is illuminated. He gains some light. But how long does the fire of brushwood last? Soon it dies out, and when it dies, the darkness that follows is even deeper than before. Darkness after light feels heavier, more suffocating. The Quran says, when that brief light appeared, everyone thought, yes, now the path is clear, now it is illuminated. The world was deceived into thinking the path was truly lit, but the world should wait a little and see how long that light lasts. As soon as it extinguished, he was left in darkness once again. The plural of zulma is zulumat, while for nur, the Quran never uses a plural form. The Quran uses the word zulumat for darkness, and within this lies a subtle point. Zulumat is the plural of zulma, meaning the Quran always employs the plural form for darkness. First, let me clarify. Zulma means darkness, but not every kind of darkness. Since the Quran was revealed in the Arabic language, a language of great precision, zulma refers specifically to a place where there ought to be light, but there is none. If there is a place where light is not expected, its absence is not called zulma. The Quran says that such people are left in zulumat. And notice, the Quran always uses the plural form for darkness. In contrast, for light, it uses nur or diya, but never in the plural. Why? Because darkness can exist in many forms, but light is only one. Wrong answers can be countless, but the right answer is only one. A target hit by an arrow is a single point. If it misses, there are countless places where it can land. Those who choose false systems of life always remain in zulumat. Dear brothers, truth, haq, is one, while falsehood, batil, has thousands of forms. The Quran equates falsehood with darkness, and since it can take countless forms, it always uses the plural zulumat. For truth, which it calls light, it always uses the singular form. From this, the distinction between tawheed and shirk becomes clear. The correct answer is tawheed, the acceptance of the one. If this one true answer is denied, then countless false answers must be accepted. That is why the Quran always uses zulumat for darkness. Such people remain trapped in darkness. Who are they? They are those who devise false systems of life for themselves. The deceptive results of these systems appear dazzling. They rejoice in them, they deceive themselves, and the world is also deceived. Swept away by emotions, they fail to use intellect and reason. As they advance along the wrong path, they gain progress and benefits, but only superficially. For their immediate schemes, they may appear clever, but anyone who looks objectively, from a distance, sees clearly that they are acting like madmen. For the goals they pursue, the world laughs at them. Those who try to explain warn them, "You are walking the wrong path," but they neither listen nor see the right way. The loss of the ability to think and understand. The Quran says, when someone lights the fire of his own schemes, it may give him benefit for a short while, but when the fire dies out, his condition becomes such that he no longer retains the ability to think, understand, or perceive. Their state is described as summun, bukmun, umyun, fahum la yarji'un. Deaf, dumb, and blind. They will never return. What does this mean? Deaf, they no longer have the ability to listen. Blind, they no longer have the ability to see. Dumb, they no longer have the ability to speak. This is the loss of these faculties. One way these faculties can be lost is through physical causes, natural reasons that deprive a person of hearing, sight, or speech. According to the Quran, the worst of creation are those who do not use reason. But the Quran does not speak of physical causes here. It speaks of the loss of these faculties through emotional blindness, when a person is swept away by passions. Physically, he is sound. His ears work, his eyes are fine, his tongue is intact, his faculties of thought are present. A doctor would give him a clean report. Yet such a person is described as blind and deaf in the Quran. We too say in daily life, he has become blind, he listens to no one, he sees no good or evil. This is exactly what the Quran means. The Quran itself explains in other places, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts but do not understand with them. وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا. They have eyes but do not see with them. وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. They have ears but do not hear with them. أُولَئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. They are like cattle. In form they appear human, but in reality they are deprived of humanity, reduced to animals. The Quran adds, بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. No, they are even more astray. Animals, at least, follow their instincts. These people have lost even that distinction. Elsewhere, the Quran says, إِنَّ شَرَّ الدَّوَابِّ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ السُّمُّ الْبُكْمُ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Indeed, the worst of creatures in the sight of Allah are the deaf and dumb who do not reason. Here, the Quran calls them sharra dawab, the worst of all moving creatures. Dabba refers to every living, moving creature, even insects. Among them, the worst are those humans who, despite having eyes, ears, and hearts, do not use them to think and understand. La ya'qilun. They do not use reason. Guidance of intellect and insight in a mixed human society of good and evil. Dear brothers, another example is given. Or like a rainstorm from the sky, within it darkness, thunder, and lightning. In this world, among all the means and resources you have, you will see that destructive and constructive elements are mixed together. The task of sound intellect and reason is to separate the destructive elements, to take precautions against them, and to select the constructive elements, bring them close, work according to them, and use them. This is the correct way of life. In this world, things will always come mixed. This is a strange matter. Even in the life of animals, dear brothers, you will see there is no such confusion. A group of lions seen from afar, you know they are predators. They will tear and eat. A goat anywhere, you know it will eat leaves. It will not harm you. A snake anywhere, you know it will bite. It carries poison. Among animals, things are not mixed, but man is different. In a group of people, you cannot know who are lions and wolves and who are goats. This is why man is deceived. Yet this is also the dignity of humanity, that he must, with his own insight, discern who to avoid and who to live with. It is no virtue of the goat that it recognizes the lion, but if a man recognizes the wolf in human form, that is his virtue. And the Quran gives this vision, the ability to recognize wolves hidden in human bodies. The importance of administrative ability in social affairs. In human society, things come mixed. It is like a storm cloud rising. Within it there is thunder, lightning, and also rain that nourishes crops. Rain is wholly beneficial. Lightning is destructive. These things come together. What is needed is a system, like placing a conductor rod on top of buildings, so that when lightning strikes, it does not cause destruction. Proper arrangements must be made, precautions taken, so that one is protected. The Quran says, the true divine system provides such protection. It shields from all destructive forces of evil while allowing one to benefit from the blessings of good. This is the system of God. In a false system, however, their condition is different. They deceive, they cheat, they gain all these things through wrongful means. It is clear that destruction is also hidden within it. Which thief does not know that his end contains ruin? And what do they do to protect themselves? It is like someone who, to escape the thunder, puts his fingers in his ears. Ask them, will putting fingers in your ears save you from thunder? Perhaps the sound will not reach your ears, but what if the lightning snatches away your sight altogether? Hidden dangers of capitalism cannot be cured by mere intellectual tricks. In a false system, destruction lies hidden. Artificial measures cannot provide true protection. Listen, Iqbal said, तदब्बुर की फसूंकारी से महकम हो नहीं सकता जहां में जिस तमद्दुन की बना सरमायादारी है बंगे दरा. Yes, for its destructive forces you may arrange some temporary, superficial safeguards. But the Quran says such arrangements are like a man standing in the forest, trying to protect himself from lightning by putting his fingers in his ears. See how self-deceptive this is. The Quran declares, this is not the way. The true way to escape the destruction of a false system is to replace it with a correct system. فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت. 2:19. They put their fingers in their ears against the thunderclaps, fearing death. The Quran elsewhere describes lightning as a mixture of fear and hope. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ يُرِيكُمُ الْبَرْقَ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا وَيُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَيُحْيِي بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. 30:24. Lightning carries both fertility and destruction. With it comes the rain cloud that revives dead earth. But without safeguards, lightning burns like dry brushwood. In the right system, good and evil are made distinct. Dear brothers, the next point, the Quran says that in this are great signs for those who use intellect. Rain nourishes crops. Lightning destroys them. This is obvious.
But the deeper truth is that this is an example of a system. In human life, things come mixed. The correct system separates destruction from construction, evil from good. Wamtazu al-yawma ayyuhal mujrimun, 36:59. Stand apart today, O criminals. In the right system, people will not remain mixed so that you cannot tell whether the one beside you is a thief or a friend. They will be separated. Yordaful mujrimuna bisimahim, 55:41. Criminals will be recognized by their marks. There will be no false dignitaries to shelter criminals. In mixed human life, destruction and benefit come together, entangled. People think temporary measures like plugging ears against thunder will save them. But the Quran says, Wallahu muhitun bil kafirin, 2:19. They do not realize that God's system surrounds them from every side, like the air itself. Elsewhere, and those who deny our signs, 7:182. These are the ones who reject God's values, claiming that dishonesty and deception do not lead to ruin, and that honesty does not bring eventual joy. But the Quran declares their claim is false.
A pause between action and its consequences. Dear brothers, the words of the Quran such as taqdeeb ayat, denial of the signs, mean that those who behave in this way are not seized immediately. Why? Because, as I said earlier, in physical life, according to natural laws, if you work hard, the natural results appear before you right away. But in a false system, though life seems to proceed according to natural processes, its destructive consequences are not immediately visible. The Quran calls this the pause of respite, muhlit kawakfa. Every action requires a period of time before its tangible results appear. Every seed requires time before it becomes a crop. This interval of respite deceives man. The Quran says, وَالَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا, and those who deny our signs. They say, these are just stories of the ancients, asatirul awwalin, old tales. What effect can they have? But the Quran declares, سَنَسْتَدْرِيجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. We shall lead them step by step from directions they do not perceive. Notice the word سَنَسْتَدْرِيجُهُمْ. You cannot pronounce it all at once. It comes step by step, syllable by syllable. This itself reflects its meaning, gradual, stage by stage, degree by degree. The Quran's eloquence is remarkable. It says, we take them step by step toward destruction, but in ways they cannot even comprehend at the time. The hidden nature of false systems' consequences. The Quran continues, وَأُمْلِي لَهُمْ, and I grant them respite. This pause of time is given to everyone, even to them. Let them remain in it. Inna kaydi mateen. Indeed, my plan is firm. Do not think there is no accountability, that oppressors and usurpers flourish without consequence. We see them prosper, apparently untouched. But the Quran says this is not the case. The word kaid is used here. Normally it means a plan or strategy, but in the Quran it refers to a subtle, imperceptible plan, one not visible to the senses. Thus, God's strategies by which the destructive results of false systems are brought forth are hidden and subtle. People do not realize from which directions destruction is approaching until it finally stands before them in visible form. The thinking of those neglectful of the law of recompense produces destructive results for the hereafter. Among us, there is one group whose attention never turns to the fact that God has a plan, what is called his law of recompense, mukafat amal, that every human action inevitably produces a result. Another group has now emerged that has become indifferent, paying no attention at all. Even among those considered God-fearing, their attitude is that all of this is postponed until the day of judgment, that hell is there, paradise is there, accountability is there. But the Quran says this is not the case. Later, when paradise and hell are mentioned, I will explain what they truly are according to the Quran and how they begin in this very life. Life cannot be divided into separate pieces. It is a continuous progression. For now, note that the Quran says, Wallahu muhitun bil kafirin. Allah encompasses the disbelievers. This means God's law of recompense surrounds those who deny it. Every breath and every action is weighed in the balance of recompense. Elsewhere the Quran says, وَإِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ لَمُحِيطَةٌ بِالْكَافِرِينَ. Indeed, hell already encompasses the disbelievers. They wait for death, thinking accountability will occur only then. But in reality, human accountability happens with every breath. The balance is set within the human chest.
Every particle of action is weighed continuously. God has described himself as Wallahu sari'ul hisab. Allah is swift in reckoning. Would the one who is swift in reckoning postpone accountability until the day of judgment, millions of years later? No, life is judged moment by moment. The Quran says hell already surrounds the disbelievers, and in another place it expresses this with great subtlety, perceivable only through basirat, not mere eyesight. It says, Narullahil muqada, allati tattali'u ala al-af'ida, the kindled fire of Allah, which rises over the hearts. Hell's flames encircle the human heart. It is a fire that grips the inner being.
The deception of wrong systems. Dear brothers, those who live by false systems think nothing is happening. They do not realize that Wallahu muhitun bil kafirin. Allah's law of recompense surrounds them from every side. The flood of hidden consequences from a false system. The Quran says, Yakadul barqu yakhtafu absarahum. The lightning almost snatches away their sight. As I mentioned earlier, thunder's sound quickly reaches the ears. To protect themselves, they plug their ears with their fingers. But what if in that very moment the flash of lightning snatches away their vision? What then? The point is, destruction in a false system does not come from a single path. If you block one opening, you cannot assume you are safe. There are countless unseen routes through which ruin arrives. These cannot be sealed within a false system. Only by replacing it with a true system can protection be achieved. The futility of patchwork reforms in a false system. Dear brothers, it is a strange reality. If you attempt to reform society through patchwork grafting, pevandkari, within a false system, it cannot succeed. The corruption lies in the root. All your reform efforts are like applying ointment to smallpox blisters. One blister appears, you apply medicine, before you remove the bandage, another arises. While treating that, a third emerges. As the poet said, Sina hama daag daag, pamba kuja kuja naham. My chest is all wounds, where can I place the cotton? Even if you apply ointment to every blister, relief will not come. The real corruption lies in the blood itself. The blisters are only visible symptoms. In a false system, the problems you see are not the real problems. They are merely manifestations of the deeper corruption. You chase after symptoms while the root remains untouched, continually feeding the disease. It is like feeding milk to a snake, then calling healers when it bites. Can such a method ever bring reform? Absolutely not.
The reality of society's cry. This is not just theory. We ourselves witness it. Society is in uproar. Whoever you meet is lamenting. There is no sphere of life without pain or complaint. Cries and protests are everywhere. Yes, in some areas, sincere efforts are made for reform, but nothing truly changes. Society falls into despair. Then another narcotic is administered. Human nature itself is flawed. The wrong concept of human nature leads to psychological despair. Dear brothers, people do not reflect on what they are saying about human beings. When they claim that human nature itself is bad, what concept of the Creator does this imply? It is like saying, do not buy fans from that factory. They never make them properly. In reality, you are not criticizing the fan, but the maker of the fan. To reach the point of declaring human nature itself as bad is the height of despair. If nature itself is bad, then reform is impossible. This is a false concept. What actually happens is that we try to patch up the results produced by a false system, but only by establishing a correct system can those evils be removed. The Quran says they act as if plugging their ears or closing their eyes will save them from destruction. Yet the Quran uses the word muhitun, encompassing. It means destruction surrounds them from every side. They are like people sitting inside a gas chamber. With every breath, death enters their lungs. How can they block it? It cannot be stopped. Human difficulties without the guidance of revelation. The Quran gives a striking example. يَكَادَ بَرْقُ يَخْطُفُ أَبْصَارَهُمْ كُلَّمَا أَضَاءَ لَهُمْ مَشَوْا فِيهِ وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ قَامُوا. The lightning almost snatches away their sight. Whenever it flashes for them, they walk therein, but when darkness covers them, they stand still. Imagine again the dark forest, the lonely traveler, no sign of light anywhere. A storm cloud rises, lightning flashes. For a few steps the path is illuminated and he walks forward.
Then the lightning fades, darkness returns, and he halts, lost again. Dear brothers, the entire history of humanity is the living story of this example. Whenever mankind has tried to journey through life relying solely on the light of human intellect, the result has been the same. Lightning illuminated the path for a few steps, then darkness returned, deeper than before. The caravan either stopped or wandered onto false paths. That is why the Quran calls itself Nur and Nur Mubin, the clear light. From here, true illumination comes. Systems built only on human intellect are like lightning. They shine briefly, then vanish, leaving humanity stranded in darkness. This has been the story of your caravan throughout history, and if it continues, the losses of time, energy, wealth, and lives will be immense. The Quran describes the muttaqin, the righteous, as those who wish to avoid the difficult mountain passes of the path. They are the ones who seek guidance to avoid these destructive detours.
Natural laws remain open to all, believers and disbelievers alike. Now comes the point I mentioned earlier. Often we wonder and even say, these people commit so much oppression and injustice. If God exists, why does he not twist their wrists? Why does he not choke them? We see no accountability. They live in luxury and die the same way. Why does God not seize them? This question arises daily. Let me repeat what I said before. Whatever is obtained, it is the result of effort according to natural laws. If someone tills the soil, plants good seed, irrigates and protects it, no matter how sinful he may be, the crop will not refuse to grow, saying, "First go and perform evolution, then I will sprout." Natural laws do not work that way. When we ask, why is there no accountability, what we really want is for the doors of natural laws to be closed upon them. But the Quran explains otherwise. It says, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ 2:20. If Allah willed, he could take away their hearing and sight. Yes, it is within God's power to close even the paths of natural law. But he says, that would not be fair play. That would be mere anger and revenge. Here, the principle is not punishment and reward in that sense. Rather, every action produces its own result upon the doer. As far as natural laws are concerned, this is the system. Comparison of two ways of life and their outcomes. Listen carefully, dear brothers. The verse, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ 2:20 is often misunderstood. The Quran is saying, if we willed, we could strip away their faculties of sight and hearing, but our system is different. See how God's system works with natural laws. Two ways of life are compared. Those who seek immediate gains, they live purely under natural laws, desiring short-term benefits. Quran says, مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْعَاجِلَ عَجَّلْنَا لَهُ فِيهَا مَا نَشَاءُ لِمَنْ نُرِيدُ 17:18. Whoever desires the immediate, we hasten for him therein what we will, for whom we will. Meaning, if someone seeks short-term gains, God does not block the path. He receives results according to natural laws. But the end is, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَا لَهُ جَهَنَّمَ 17:18. Then we appoint hell for him. Their fields of effort ultimately burn away. Their condition becomes one of despair, dejection, and loneliness, sitting with head in hand, with no one to care. This is hell. 2. Those who seek the future, the afterlife, they believe in the truth of God's values and strive for both immediate and lasting benefits. Quran says, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ وَسَعَ لَهَا سَعْيَهَا وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ 17:19. And whoever desires the afterlife and strives for it with due striving while he is a believer. Such people, while keeping the future in view, also receive immediate benefits. For them, فَأُولَئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا 17:19. Their effort is appreciated. Their endeavors yield full and lasting results. Thus, two groups emerge. Those who seek only immediate gains, ending in despair. Those who strive with faith for lasting values, whose efforts are fruitful and enduring. God does not restrict the natural blessings he grants. The Quran says, كُلًّا نُمِدُّ هَؤُلَاءِ وَهَؤُلَاءِ 17:20. To all, these and those, we extend provision. This means that as far as natural laws are concerned, both groups are given equal opportunities. Whoever wishes may advance, whoever wishes may lag behind. Then it says, وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا 17:20. The bounty of your Lord is never restricted. The blessings granted under natural law are not blocked for anyone.
God does not scatter thorns in anyone's path, nor does he close the gates of natural laws upon anyone. This world is a realm of effort and action. Whoever strives receives results. Thus, it is not possible, as some desire, that natural laws should seize the hand of the oppressor and turn it into stone. If a non-believer plants wheat, wheat will grow. If he plants grapes, grapes will grow. The Quran says, وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. The bounty of your Lord is never withheld. The comparative outcomes of two ways of life. The Quran continues, انظر كيف فضلنا بعضهم على بعض. See how we have favored some over others. In the world of effort, one nation advances beyond another. God does not stand as a barrier in their path, but وَلَلْآخِرَةُ أَكْبَرُ دَرَجَاتٍ وَأَكْبَرُ تَفْضِيلًا. The afterlife has greater ranks and greater distinctions. Those who keep the future in view, the lasting values and enduring success, rise to much higher levels of life. Not accepting the permanent values of revelation in human life is like making two gods. The Quran says, لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر. Do not set up another God alongside Allah. This means do not divide God's laws into two parts, letting physical life run according to his natural laws while making human life subject to your own expediencies. Doing so is equivalent to creating another God beside him. The Quran warns, if you do this, then فَتَقْعُدَ مَذْمُومًا مَخْذُولًا. You will end up despised and forsaken. The result will be despair, dejection, and hopelessness.
False expectations of divine favor. Do not expect that God will block the natural laws for your sake. Do not imagine that because you are the beloved community of the Prophet ﷺ, your crops will grow even if you sleep at home. Such expectations are mere emotionalism. God is above emotions. He is the one whose system is consistent and impartial. Quran's comparative teaching. These are the truths the Quran presents at various places, comparing the two groups and their two philosophies of life. One group that lives only by natural laws and selfish expediencies. Another that accepts revelation's permanent values and aligns human life with them. The Quran shows clearly the difference in their outcomes. The outcome of emotional worship instead of worship of God is nothing but material abundance. The Quran says, فَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا. And among mankind are those who say, Our Lord, grant us in this world. This refers to a group whose purpose in life is only to gain as many worldly, material benefits as possible. Their pursuit is not limited to lawful means. They seek them by any method, lawful or unlawful. But the Quran adds, وَمَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. They will have no share in the hereafter. The Quran's repeated warning. At another place, مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا وَزِينَتَهَا نُوَفِّي إِلَيْهِمْ أَعْمَالَهُمْ فِيهَا وَهُمْ فِيهَا لَا يُبْخَسُونَ. Whoever desires the life of this world and its adornment, we shall repay them fully for their deeds therein, and they will not be deprived. But أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ لَيْسَ لَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا النَّارِ. They are those for whom there is nothing in the hereafter except the fire. Their efforts ultimately end in ruin. The systems they build are artificial, like false jewels. As Iqbal said, jhute nagon ki meenakari. When tested, the glitter fades, the plating peels off, and only base metal remains. The law of reimbursement in both worlds. The Quran repeats this principle in 42:20. مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ حَرْثَ الْآخِرَةِ نَزِدْ لَهُ فِي حَرْثِهِ. Whoever desires the hereafter, we increase his harvest. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ حَرْثَ الدُّنْيَا نُؤْتِهِ مِنْهَا وَمَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ نَصِيبٍ. And whoever desires the hereafter of this world, we give him of that, but he will have no share in the hereafter. The Quran's answer to the question of injustice. People often ask, why does God not immediately crush the oppressors and wrongdoers? The Quran's answer is, in the realm of physical life, God does not block natural laws. Whoever strives receives results. But the ultimate outcome is determined by whether one sought only immediate gains or also the enduring values of the hereafter. The group that lives by permanent values rather than immediate gains. Dear brothers, in contrast to those verses, the Quran describes another group whose way of life, whose vision, whose aspirations are expressed in these words.
ومنهم من يقول ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. And among them are those who say, Our Lord, grant us good in this world and good in the hereafter, and save us from the punishment of the fire. This group desires that their worldly life be one of dignity and honor, and that their future also be pleasant and prosperous. These are the true people who harness the forces of nature under natural laws, and spend their fruits according to the permanent values revealed by God for the benefit of humanity. This is the group whose present is radiant and whose future is bright and luminous. The Quran calls them the group of believers, mu'mineen, and the righteous, muttaqeen. In contrast, the second group lives only under natural laws, seeking immediate gains by lawful or unlawful means. They too receive results of their efforts without obstruction, but their gains lack permanence. Their glitter is dazzling, but it does not last.
The condition of a third group. Besides these two, there is a third group, dear brothers. This group not only fails to harness the forces of nature, but actively rejects them, carrying sticks against them, declaring, "The world is hateful, the world is a prison, it is a corpse and its lovers are dogs. The farther one withdraws from it, the closer one is to God." But remember, religion begins precisely at the point where, after harnessing the forces of nature, the question arises of how to spend their fruits. Religion starts here. Whoever has not harnessed these forces, who has not gathered resources under natural law, for him the question of how to spend them does not even arise. This third group's world is dark, and their hereafter is dark as well. The Quran says, وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى. Whoever is blind in this life will be blind in the hereafter as well. Thus, before us stand three groups. 1. Those who seek both worldly and eternal good, aligning their lives with God's values. 2. Those who seek only immediate gains, dazzling but impermanent. 3. Those who reject the world altogether, whose present and future are both dark. In these very verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, the Quran mentions those same three groups. These, dear brothers, are the three groups mentioned by the Quran in the first 20 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. We have studied these 20 verses, I think, for more than 3 months, but I believe that until the fundamental principles of religion are understood, moving forward brings little benefit. Once you grasp these foundational truths, you will see that the path ahead becomes much easier. You will also realize how the Quran, from Al-Fatiha to An-Nas, flows as a coherent and connected book. It is not, as is often said from pulpits, that sometimes it tells the story of Adam, sometimes it speaks of paradise, sometimes of the children of Israel, then of crops, then of the heavens. That is not the case. After describing these three groups, the Quran goes on to explain what the destructive consequences of a false system are, and what happens when a true system of life is established, what that system is, and what results it produces. This begins with the verse, Ya ayyuhan nasu, u'budu rabbakum. O mankind, worship your Lord. This is the 21st verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. Dear brothers, the time has come, so we will resume this discussion next Sunday. Rabbana taqabbal minna, innaka antas sami'ul alim. Our Lord, accept from us, indeed you are the all-hearing, the all-knowing.